Hello, I thought this morning it might be worth having a look at the FlyByWire A320 mod for Microsoft Flight Simulator. So this is an add-on for the simulator built by the community or by a team called FlyByWire that are extending the stock A320 and Microsoft Flight Simulator to fill in all the missing functionality to bring it a lot closer to a study level aircraft and a simulation of the real aircraft systems and avionics. So if we go and jump inside, we can see we're cold and dark. We're on the ground at Edwards Air Force Base. So the plan is we're just going to go and do a manual circuit of Edwards, but I just want to see what the power-up sequence is like. Really, we're not going to get into the MCDU too deeply because there's obviously a lot more of it. We'll see some elements of that as we go through the systems. So first things first, let's go and turn the batteries on. I'm not going to do this completely in order properly. I'm just going to get the plane up to speed and operating. So we turn the batteries on. We've actually got external power available, so we're going to switch that on as well. We'll turn the APU on and start the APU. You can hear things kicking in around the aircraft. We've got the ADIA system, the inertial navigation system, is actually operating properly now. So we go and switch those to nav, and you should see at this point the screens are dark, which is good. That's how it should be. So the inner knob on this one does that one. This one is this one. So you can see things are taking a while to boot up, which is absolutely accurate. They don't just switch on like magic. We now need to go and turn these brightnesses up, so that's here and here. And what else? Oh, this little display here, the plus and minus is the brightness for it. Again, that hasn't completely started up yet. So if we have a look up here, we can turn the crew supplied oxygen on. We can go and turn on the hydraulic pumps. We can see now the APU has started. We can turn the APU bleed on, for example, and then we should be able to spin the engines up. We can see our the inertial navigation system will be aligned in about 7 minutes time. So we need to go and turn the ignition to start, and then we'll start engine number 2. And we can see over here the N2 number is climbing, the percentage, so that's percentage of nominal. So there's a gearbox between, this is the gas turbine, and that's the turbofan, so you'll see this start to increase as well, and you'll see the fuel flow and the exhaust gas temperature raise as soon as it gets past about 20-25 degrees percent, sorry. So there it goes. You can see we've got some notifications here that TCAS is still on standby, the parking brake is on. So let's go and do some more switches while we're waiting for things. Strobe lights on, beacon on, nav lights to 2. We don't need nose lights for if it's bright sunshine in the morning at Edwards. Seatbelt lights on, no smoking lights. Whoops, that's auto, that's on. What else do we need to do? Let's have a look around. That's looking good. So let's look down here. You can see that engine number 2 has stabilised, so we will now go and do the same for engine number 1. You can now see the N2 number for engine number 1 is starting up, increasing I should say. A lot of these warnings will go away once both of the engines are operating. Something that's significantly better now is we've got full details in the ECAM system. If we go and look in here, so there's the engine data, there's the air bleed data, there's the pressurization for the cabin, there's the electrical systems, there's the hydraulics. That doesn't seem to be anything there at the moment. Fuel systems, APU, the air conditioning, the doors, the wheels, the flight control systems. It's very good. Very, very good. So normally you would be used to seeing the fuel one when you're operating this normally. Okay. So the biggest change is obviously in the MCDU, but I'm not going to delve too far into it today. You You can see you've got a world of different options. So it now simulates the ATSU system, AIDS system, CFDS. It's huge. So we'll clear this, and it's saying the GPS primary is lost. So if we go into initialization, we can see where we're going from and to. So we'll clear that warning as well. So KEDW, isn't it? We're at. I'm not going to fill this all in properly. KEDW to KEDW. That's Edwards Air Force Base. Okay, and we can go and return, and we can initialize the IRS, and we can align on the reference airport of where we are from. The reference is KEDW. Confirm the alignment. We can come back. We can put some cost index numbers in. It really doesn't matter because we're going to fly it manually anyway. We're going to go no higher than 5,000 feet. So we can either put 5,000 or 50 for the flight level. It doesn't hurt it at all. IRS initialization, yeah, though it says it there, we don't actually need to do it, we've already done it. So I'm not going to put a flight plan in. So we're just waiting for this to power up. Oh, it's saying there's a TCAS fault. Why is there a TCAS fault? Let's go and have a look. IRS in it. Do we have to choose a number here? Didn't think we did. Interesting. I wonder if it's just taking a minute to warm up. Because that's certainly not 6 minutes when we started it. Anyway, we're not going to worry too much about that. So just change the QNH, or use the shortcut key B to do that. And okay. So just waiting for things to come up to speed. I wonder if it is complaining because I haven't put a route in. Let's go and quickly put a small flight plan in. So we're from KEDW. Departure runway 23 left. Insert that. We're going to land back at KEDW. We're going to arrive at, let's scroll this up, ILS 23 left. That's correct. Insert that. So it's going to put some waypoints in for us, which mean nothing to us really, but nav TCAS fault. I wonder why it's got. Of course. Yes, I haven't turned the TCAS on, have I? That's not the IRS it's complaining about, it's the TCAS. Being a bit silly. Let's go and turn this to auto. Up to 1. Up to on. Up to all. And hopefully that will go away once it's started up properly. And hopefully this will come on in a moment. One of the things that is really useful versus the stock version of this Airbus is now these displays are independent of each other. Yeah, here we go, it was just warming up. So these displays are now independent of each other. So we could have, for example, the landing information on one screen and the map on the other, which is absolutely fantastic. Okay, so I'm not sure what I've done in terms of that plan. Yeah, it's just made like a teardrop shape, so takeoff, background. So I'm not actually going to follow the flight plan. I'm going to just do a circuit with left-hand turns. So, engines are running. We can disconnect the external power. We can turn off the APU bleed. We can actually turn off the APU. We don't need it anymore because the engines are running. They are now providing the electricity for the aircraft. Okay. So we're not going to use air traffic control, we're just going to fly this and see how it behaves. We are going to be using, we're not using managed mode, we're going to use manual mode on the master control panel. So let's get this to 220 knots for the climb out. Heading will be 225 I think it is. Although it says runway 23, it's actually 225 degrees and 45 degrees. So we're going for selected heading, selected speed and selected altitude. So let's come off the wheel brakes. On our way to the runway, we'll move the flaps to takeoff position. So we started on stand 78 at Edwards, which is right in the corner near the taxiway to runway 23, which is perfect for us. It's control tower. So again, this is a very abbreviated, kind of shortened version of how you would do all of this. There's obviously a ton to the MCDU we haven't gone through, all the new systems. So I'm not even going to touch on them. So this is not the runway we're going to use. We're going to taxi straight past it and go down to the big runway. Or am I already there? Losing track? No, I'm not there yet. So there's the first runway. We're going to carry on straight down and use the big runway. Okay, we're getting there, slowly. So we can sit up in the seat as per normal. So centre our view by pressing F. Sit up in the seat so we can see a good view of the ground. Start slowing down a little bit. At idle, the Airbus does provide a small amount of thrust, so once you get rolling, even with the engines on idle, it's enough to make it taxi and accelerate while it's taxiing. If you're standing still on the tarmac or the concrete, it's not quite enough thrust to begin you rolling, so you need to be a little bit wary of it. So again, I'm not holding short or waiting for air traffic control, I'm just going for it. So there's no other aeroplanes around as far as I'm aware. Okay, runway 23, Edwards Air Force Base. And advancing throttles. So you can see the auto throttle has engaged as soon as I push the throttles forwards. So let's sit back down. So you can see it's showing manual toga. Takeoff go around power setting. We're just holding the aircraft gently. There's a small amount of crosswind, but not much. So 140 knots. Pull the nose up, and we're up. Gear up. Watch the acceleration. It's a huge runway here. Flaps up. We will engage the autopilot over here. So remember, we've got heading and speed on selected, so the auto throttle is going to manage that, but at the moment it's on toga, which is full power. So we pull the throttle back to this little marker and it says it goes to speed mode, which means the auto throttle is now going to maintain the speed we have requested. So you can see the little marker has now moved to 220 knots, which we've asked for here. And we're coming up to 4,000 feet. Remember, it's doing a managed climb to 5,000 feet, so when 5,000 comes into view, there will be a triangle against it. We just hold on here for a moment to see that happen. Or a marker, I should say. There's the marker. So we can now begin a left turn, for example, and we're going to go and turn back to 45 degrees, which is the reciprocal of 225. So I'm going in the opposite direction. So just keep spinning the heading until we get back to 445. a look around and do a bit of sightseeing. Okay, so the aeroplane's going to take care of going to 45 degrees, 5,000 foot, 220 knots. So let's go and have a look outside. I'm not sure that there's been any modifications to the 3D model. So you can see there's the runway we took off on. We're just going to come around and do a big circuit and come back in. So while we're out here, we can have a look, and let's go and have a look at the radios just to make sure that things are set up correctly. So navigation radio is 110.10 for the ILS. We can check that in little nav map, so 110.10226 degrees for the runway. So we've got course 226, 110.0. That would have been filled in for us when we selected in the flight plan the arrival at KEDW. Yeah, so when we went in here and selected 23 left, that pre-programmed the navigation radio for us. So you can see the flight plan it wanted to do was to do right turns and come back in, but we're not going to do that. Okay, so we're gently flying out across the sand, and there's the runway we took off from. So again, we're going nowhere near setting up a flight plan really, or doing it properly, because that takes a very long time. This would turn into a 2-hour video instead of a half an hour. 20 minutes, whatever this is going to end up being. So have a look around. All the controls work pretty much the same as they did before. Obviously a lot more buttons work now than they did before. It's interesting that a lot of these work properly now that weren't quite correct before. And it's great that things like the ADIS system is independent and working. I wonder if they're fire tests. Can we test them? Yep, the test buttons work. That's fantastic. So there's a lot more that works now than did before. It's interesting. There's no button for the economy mode on the air conditioning. Most of the Airbuses you get an economy button as well. So if the cabin's only got so many passengers in, you can actually downrate the aircon system, so it doesn't provide so much of a draw, or it doesn't pull so much on the rest of the resources. You know, because obviously if you've only got 20 people in the cabin, you don't need to put as much effort into keeping the entire cabin climate controlled. Okay, where are we? So if we look behind us, there's the runway. So let's start slowing down a little bit. So we'll pull this back to 180 knots. And we'll go back to the first flap setting. So you can see the ribbon arriving here. One of the advantages of dropping the flaps is you give yourself some drag as well, which slows you down naturally. Go for the next flap setting. So we are going to turn to 315, and then we're going to have a look at a little nav map and see where we are. And turn the speed down to 160. See the aircraft's vibrating ever so slightly. It doesn't like going that fast on the flaps. So there we are on the map. So we're going to come along here, 315, then turn to 225 for the approach. And we should see the ILS light up when we get near it, which will be good. So this was the line into the runway. See that on our flight plan that we didn't follow, which is quite useful to us because we know when to start turning. We can also see it in little nav map as well. So So if you imagine extending a line down here through the waypoints, obviously the real flight plan's got these waypoints on it and the VOR and things like that. Okay, so let's start turning to 225 degrees. We'll go to 245 because I imagine we're going to turn a little bit early. And let's turn this to landing mode. So we're just above the glide slope. Okay, so let's go to manual control now. So turn the autopilot off, turn the auto throttle off. So we are to the left of the glide slope and we are above the glide slope. So we'll just intercept them on the way in. So if we just check, we haven't put the gear down yet, so there goes the gear, you can hear it. So I think the fly-by-wire has actually improved the sounds quite dramatically as well, so you get the thumps and clunks of things happening around the aircraft. So going for flaps, full flaps now. Speed's coming down. On the vertical part of the glide slope, so we're watching for the horizontal part of the glide slope next. We just smoothly follow it in, methodically, calmly. We don't panic, we don't chase it too much. We just concentrate on coming in over the apron of the runway at about kind of 130 knots. It's a nice calm day, so this is going to be nice and easy. We're going to have a headwind with a small element of crosswind. Just turning into the runway direction. So watching that crosswind, it should push us back to the runway automatically. Actually no, because we've come up short, haven't we? So we're to the left of the glide slope, so we're turning right a tiny bit. Getting a bit low. Decelerating, so we open the engine a little bit just to arrest our deceleration. We now run to the right of the glide slope, so we're just going to calmly follow it down. I actually prefer manual landings to using auto landing. I guess part of it is, you know, it's practice, but it just gives you something to do. It's a bit more fun. So the wind is going to push us a tiny bit, but it's only a few knots. So if you hear some creaking in the background, my joystick has developed a squeak, I'm not sure why. So it's only very small movements that I'm inputting into it, but it's enough to make a noise. Okay, so we're about 135 knots. Slightly off to the right, slightly below. So again, it's just small corrections all the way down. Calmly follow the glide slope in. 500. Yeah, I'm not sure that the flight model is any different in the it's not going to be vastly different, I wouldn't imagine, but we'll find out when we get over the runway, see if it hovers in the same manner that the stock plane does, or if it just calmly, smoothly descends onto the runway.
10, 5.
Still got the same problem with drifting. And we're down. So not quite on the centre line, but not bad. So flaps up, thrust reversers. We don't really need them on this runway, we can just roll. So we're getting a master warning because the flaps are up. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Obviously I'm not going to bore you with taxiing all the way back. We've pretty much done it. So it was quite predictable. It's still got fails from those various things in the flight model where if you slip sideways into the air to try and straighten up on the runway, it doesn't really have much impact because the simulator doesn't model airflow on the side of the fuselage. So it's a bit of a problem there, but other than that, it's very good. It didn't seem to float too much. It came in quite a stable manner. So I'll just pull it up to a halt on the taxiway once we get off the active runway, and we're good to go. So there you go. This was the fly-by-wire A320. Obviously, I could do a whole series of videos looking at the new sections of the MCDU and exploring what they all do. I'm not going to get into that today. So there you go. This was the fly-by-wire A320 mod for Microsoft Flight Simulator. And I'm going to stop the video there.